Welcome, everybody. This is our final episode of ABODE Academy Season 3. So I'm glad you all joined us. And tonight's going to be amazing. We have two wonderful speakers that are going to talk to us about their final journey with their loved one and the last goodbye. So we have a special guest as well with us. Greta Mann is here with us. She works for Christus Hospice. She's our nurse practitioner, so she does all of our face-to-face visits, and she also runs our palliative program. So she sees those folks that aren't ready for hospice quite yet, and transitions them into the hospice care. You know, I think, again, we've got a small group. We probably won't need questions because these stories are going to be very intriguing, but we'll have time for questions at the end and even just some thoughts. I think it's going to be very touching to hear these stories tonight. And again, Mary will send out her survey tomorrow. And again, that's real helpful for us and in getting the kind of speakers we like, and also further topics for ABODE Academy. We're already thinking towards January when we'll be doing our next one. And let me think, is there anything else? I'll tell you at the end of the night about some upcoming activities that we have going on at ABODE through our education committee and other committees. And I guess that's about it. So
Ed
yes. Ed Alderetti is going to do our contemplative moment. So Ed, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Yes. And again, I'm going to be reciting a psalm from John Philip Newell, who takes his spirituality from great depths, that he has studied Celtic mysticism and Hebrew Jewish mysticism. And in one of them, and in many of his psalms, he connects us to the earth, to creation itself, and how creation takes us to the Creator. And in tonight's closing prayer for this day, that in the elements of earth, sea, and sky, may we see your beauty, Most High. That in wild winds and bird song and silence, may we hear your beauty, Most High. That in the body of another, and in the interminglings of human relationships, may we touch your beauty. That in earth's moisture and its flowering and its fruiting, may we smell your beauty. And that in the flowing waters of streams and springs, may we taste your beauty. These things we look for this day, Most High. These things we look for this day. Namaste. Namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Very nice. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So Greta,
Yes.
you can introduce yourself and
Okay. Thank you, Beverly. Good afternoon or good evening. My name is Greta Mann, and I work with Beverly on the hospice side, and I do face-to-face for Christus Hospice, and also head up the palliative care program. Last month made 22 years of doing hospice. Wow. And it's the love of my life, one of them. It's a pleasure to work with the families and work alongside Beverly. And so I'm really excited about being here tonight, and I'm excited and looking forward to hearing the story of Mary and Hal and their loved ones. So thank you all for being here this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and married. Would you like to tell us about your wonderful husband, Wade?
I would love to do that. So I started out thinking about my journey. Wade was in hospice care for 7 months, and that was a long time, but I took care of him a long time before that. He was in decline. He had had number of surgeries, and he had heart surgery about 5 years before he died. So that was pretty intense. He was pretty sick during that time. So 7 months on hospice got to be really intense, but I want to tell you that instead of I decided that I was going to write this, and it was going to be called The Bad, the Ugly, and the Good, because we're going to talk about the bad things first. Then we're going to talk about the ugly things, because there were some ugly things. And then we're going to end up with talking about the best parts. And so I'll just jump right in. Wade's first day in hospice care, I was at the grocery store checking out, and I got a call from our daughter, and she said, I want you to know that Dad's okay, but that he fell, and that I helped the aide get him up into the chair, but please get home as soon as you can. So I was, I hurried home, and before I even brought the groceries in, I checked on him, and I said, Wade, are you doing okay? What happened? And while I was talking to him, he passed out. And I thought, oh, great, now what do we do? So I called Beverly, who was Wade's hospice nurse, and I said, okay, we have this situation. We're not going to call EMS, but this is what's happened. What do you suppose is happening? What should I do? So we got him into bed, and and then Beverly came and assessed him within a short period of time. Well, he was able to, he woke up from that. He was able to get up and move slowly, but within an 8-hour period, he could neither stand nor walk. He was dead weight in my arms that night. And so I called the Caring Solutions, which was the caregiver group that we were using. And I said, this is an emergency. I need help immediately. My husband is now dead weight. I cannot move him. I cannot pivot. He's too heavy for me to do this by myself. I need help. So within about an hour and a half, she sent someone, and she sent this adorable young woman that her mother had been in a wheelchair. And so she was able to help me pivot, but I'm just not strong enough anymore to do that. I didn't, even with a belt on and doing the whole thing, I was very limited. I needed to have the other person. So the hospice nurse, Beverly, was off. The next day was Saturday, and she came and she saw Wade, and she said, wow, I've never seen anybody decline this fast. You need a hospital bed. You need, the things that we didn't have in the house, because, first day on hospice, he was walking and talking. He had his walker, but, he was doing okay. So it was just a steady downhill for about 3 weeks. And then one morning, he decided that he wanted to get up, sat on the side of the bed, and he said, where are we going? And I said, into the kitchen. And so he stood up with his wheelchair, and it was like, blow me over. I just cannot believe he can do this. And what we decided is that he probably had a concussion from the fall, and that he was recovering. So it was like, okay, this is good, So he was able to eat again. He was able to walk again. We started exercising with him. So that was good. Well, then the next thing that happened was I was talking to Wade's daughter, giving her an update about his condition. And I was talking to the aide at the kitchen table, and I came in, and when I walked in, Wade's language was completely garbled. I couldn't understand anything that he had to say. And I said, how long has he been like this? And he said, about 5 minutes. So then you have the problem of, okay, so he's probably had a stroke. He could move all of his extremities. He could focus, he could see. Everything was fine except for speech. So it was one of those things where, okay, do we give aspirin? Do we not give aspirin? And so I had to think like a nurse. Okay, so if I give aspirin and he's had a hemorrhagic stroke, and a small one, we're going to extend this, and we're going to cause great harm. But if I don't give aspirin, then we're going to do no harm, but it might help him. And I thought, it's his language. We can work on his language. So I made the decision. It was a tough decision, but it was the best one that I could make on the fly. And I called Beverly and she said, well, sometimes they do this and then they come back. And so, it's all new to me. I took care of babies. I took care of the other end of this life spectrum as a nurse. I was mainly babies. So this was all new. So what we did with that is that his aide was wonderful. And she said, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to teach him, we're going to sing. And singing overrides the speech center, which I didn't remember that from neuro. And so we could get him to sing, and he got his language back, about a third of his language back before he died, which I think was astounding. But we worked with him, we sang with him, we talked to him, we read to him, we had him say words, and he was a really smart guy. He had an MD and a PhD. I mean, he was well educated, and he could think of words, a word in place of one word. If he couldn't say it, he would think of another word and substitute it, and he could get his point across. So those were some of my bad stories. But I have to say, hospice, when they're on hospice and with this process, Beverly warned me. She said, it's a roller coaster ride. It is a slippery slope. You'll have good days, you'll have bad days, you'll have, worse days, you'll have better days. And it was just like that, Beverly. That was exactly right. That was exactly how it was. Then we had, the challenges of the equipment, and, we had the hospital bed, and then the bed was kind of falling apart. And so we had to exchange equipment. And then we had the Hoyer lift, and that unnerved me. I had not worked with a Hoyer lift. I know that patients hate them. They scream when you put them in them. It's a terrible experience for them because it's terrifying for them. They feel out of control, and they feel the wind underneath their feet and their bodies, and they're terrified. And it was uncomfortable for Wade. So that was another hard thing for me. And I never really did learn how to use the Hoyer lift, the manual one. I could have used an electric one, but not the manual one. So that was another challenge for me. When you're in this situation, you need to have lots of pillows. You need lots of that memory foam. We used all those things. We used everything to try to prevent breakdown. That's another thing that happens. And we used socks on his feet. When we would stand him, they had little grips on the bottom. That was really helpful. Since I had a wood floor, we had a chair that the aide told me to get. She said, you need to order this. It's from Walmart. It has a padded seat. It's bigger than the ones they have through hospice. It has wheels. So we could put him in the Hoyer lift and then sit him in his chair and wheel him into the shower. And it was great. It worked great. So he had a shower every day and made him feel more comfortable. And then when she showered him, I could change the bed and get everything just right to make him comfortable. So that all went, pretty well. Then we have the ugly part. The ugly part of this journey is having a bunch of people in and out of your house all the time. And it wasn't the hospice people. That was not a problem. It was all the people that I needed to have help me care for Wade. I couldn't do the Hoyer lift. There were so many things that I couldn't do, even though I'm a trained nurse. I didn't learn to use those things. And I'm not strong enough anymore. I'm 65 and 63 at the time. I didn't have the upper body strength anymore to do a lot of the care that I needed to give. So I had helpers, and I went through 52 helpers. Wow. And I'm not demanding. I'm a real easy person to work for. So understand that, but there were different levels of care for people and from this group. They were very nice people, all of them. but they didn't have necessarily the skills that that I needed to care for Wade. And then some of them were just, neglectful, and I wasn't going to tolerate that. And so I ended up finding a couple of really good ones. And one of them, I nicknamed him 6'4". He was this young, tall guy who was just adorable. And I said, James, these are the things that I need for you to do. And I listed them for anybody that came to the house. This is what I need for you to do. This is what I need for you to help me with. Can you do this? Are you comfortable with this? And, a lot of them said no. And some of them, James said, well, I learned to do those things, but he said, it's been a while. And I said, okay, good. If you are willing to do this, I will train you and I will help you. And we will do this together. We'll do the bath, we'll do the bed change, we'll do all those things together. So we did, and James stayed with me throughout Wade's lifetime, as well as another woman, her name was Sandra, and she taught me how to be an excellent caregiver. She trained me, and Beverly knows her very well. She's worked with other clients of Beverly's, and Sandra she was a godsend. Talk about angels in your life at this time. It was great. But then the other challenging thing, and this is a sad story, but there was a person that was stealing from us that was in the house that would come in and give Wade his shower before Sandra and I were using the Hoyer lift. So we found that out, and we had to file a police report and tell the hospice group that this was happening. And so that was another thing that happened. I don't think we're unusual. Unfortunately, I don't think that that's unusual. So those were some of the things. And then my housekeeper, who had worked for the family for over 30 years, one day I came in and she was talking about me in front of Wade. And she said that she thought that I was having an affair, and that she thought because I needed time out, I wanted to go and see my sister for a couple days break. And she thought that I was going to go see someone. And even though I talked to her and told her that nursing care was never meant to be 24/7, that I needed a break so I could come back and feel refreshed and take better care of Wade, she was unrelenting in some of the things that she was saying about me, the lies. And I finally heard them and I fired her. So then I lost my housekeeper, and she wasn't doing a great job, but then I had to pick up the slack, and then Sandra and I would clean the house when Wade was asleep. So, it was just these weird things that happened. And then another thing that happened was family. I thought that we were kind of all on the same page, but I could see that one of the kids was getting disgruntled. I had texted a couple of the grandkids, his kids, and told them, the condition of Grandpa, and because I hadn't heard from them. And then they called their dad and said, why didn't you tell us, Dad? Grandpa was so sick, because he was in denial, and it was painful for him. And so what I found, it was a really good solution, is that on Facebook, I put Wade's condition, and I would have condition reports about him. And it wasn't real personal things, but it was enough for family and friends. And, my Facebook group is small, it's intimate. And so I felt like old, high school friends would be interested, as well as, extended family and all that. So I was comfortable sharing some of those things with them. So anyway, that was that. And that really did help. Well, from that came a nice, I saved them all on Facebook. And now I have all of those, it was like a diary of all the things that were happening to Wade and what we were doing and what it was at different points. And I think that was a comfort to me now of what was happening, what we were thinking, what his days were like. And I was really glad I did that. So I encourage anyone to journal or Facebook or have blogs or whatever, because that will document your journey. And I think that's important. One thing I do want to mention that I didn't think of earlier on when Wade was in hospice is that medications that the patient is on, I think that you want to stop a lot of them. One of them was Lasix for Wade, and that absolutely made him miserable when he was up walking around because he couldn't get to the bathroom fast enough. And so, we have to look at medications, and you have to think, is this something that they absolutely need to live? I'm on a cardiac medication where if I don't have it, I'm going to be in trouble. But Wade wasn't on any of those medications. And so, basically what he was taking was something for his cholesterol. Well, I wasn't worried about cholesterol at that point. And I wasn't worried about, just some of the things that he was on. So then we took him off of medications. And I think that that's something for families to consider, what's a comfort, what's necessary, what isn't. And most of it, wasn't necessary. It was just maybe to improve the future quality of his life. And that was over. So now I want to get to the really good part of this whole journey. And there were moments of joy. It was just surprising. It would pop up at different times, like early in the morning. We were in the same room and his bed was next to mine. And I would hear him in the morning and I would say, "Good morning, Wade." And he would say, "Good morning, I love you." And, for somebody that doesn't have all of his language, the fact that he was able to say that was huge. I mean, that was just made me so happy. And then there were moments when he was uncomfortable and we could say the Lord's Prayer together, and those were lovely moments. And there was one night when I sat with him. He was awake. It was late, and I just held his hand and I said, think of all the things your hands have done. They've delivered babies, they've done surgery, they've saved legs, they've saved, lives. But you've also sculpted. He painted. He played the piano. He did magic. He tied flies. If he was a fly, he could fish. He was just. There are so many wonderful things that his hands had done, and he just had the biggest smile on his face when we were talking about this. It was amazing. So there were moments of joy. If you all will humor me, there's something that, couple of things I would like to read. Do I have time? Am I taking too much time?
Go ahead, please. We love to hear.
Okay. All right. Okay. Today, Wade slept most of the day. He briefly woke up to see his daughter and son-in-law during their visit. He did enjoy a piece of chocolate birthday cake and ice cream, about the only thing he would eat today. He has had oxygen on all day. He needs to be suctioned periodically. I see him fading daily. A couple of days ago, Wade said, "You give good care." Those words expressed appreciation and made all of this a little easier. I have slept better the last 2 nights. This experience is worth it. Anytime you care for another person, it is worth it. It isn't easy, but it is rewarding. Looking at him tonight, I see a clean, comfortable Wade with a very relaxed, peaceful expression on his face. No worries, no distress, just peace. He knows he is loved. That is my reward.
Oh, that's great.
Thank you.
And Mary, you kind of, just listen to that and what you wrote, it kind of goes to, I was looking up a study and it was saying that according to a study done by Biomed, that relatives of a loved one who chooses to die at home tend to experience less grief and have more benefit from their loved one. And just by listening to you, I mean, I can just hear the little things. He said, "I love you," and you talk with him. That study is definitely evident of you and what you went through.
It was worth it every single day. It was not easy. There were days I was frustrated. There were times Wade was combative and he almost hit me a couple of times, and Ellie was able to grab his hand. But that was because he got uncomfortable. And I did get in his face when he hurt the aide. And I said, "You've got a really good deal here. You're home. You're going to stay home. You're going to be here. unless you hit somebody. And I said, and then it's over, because then I can't get people in to help me. I can't care for you at home. And so please don't do that. Please just don't do that. And he stopped. He never did it again.
Wow.
And so, and he had dementia. He had a vascular dementia. So he was in and out. I mean, it was kind of lucid in the mornings, and then after noon, it was less so. And he'd be lucid in the middle of the night. But it was in and out. So I was amazed that he was able to hear that, and he was able to process it. And that was a really good thing.
So, and just to sum up what you said, which I thought was such great information, and what I took away from that is a caregiver needs a break, and you may sometimes deal with blended families.
Yes.
And medications that may need to be discontinued, not because of just the hospital coming and discontinue, because they may not need them anymore. No benefit in that.
Right.
Also, that it's a roller coaster ride when you care for a loved one, and which in the DME, that's a part when Beverly, you deal with the DME. You don't think about that, but just to try to maneuver the DME and equipment that you've never really had to do before, that can be challenging. And also having strangers in your home, I thought that was a good one to pull out as well. You do have a lot of extra activities in your home to kind of assist you with this. And also caregivers. We did hear the benefit of caregivers, but also the ugly side of caregivers. So I just want to pin those. I thought that was very helpful information and things that happens when you're caring for a loved one at home. So thank you for your wonderful story and a great tribute to your husband, Wade.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Okay, all right. And now we have Hal, if you can tell us, I believe your wife's name was Peg.
It's Peggy.
Okay, if you can please tell us about Peggy.
All righty. First of all, I just want to jump on what Mary said. It was really worth it, and
Yes.
how much trouble. And the other thing is, it was hard. It's not, can't rush over it. It was really hard. Second thing is, it's really neat because I see Edwin and Patsy up there. Edwin was Peggy's hospice chaplain, and he sort of went through the whole year's journey with me from beginning to end. So everything I say, Edwin can relate to, and you can jump in if I go off track here, Edwin. But anyway, different than Mary, my story is about my caregiving, and there's only two people in this little story. It's a husband and a wife, so let me introduce them. Here's the husband, and here's the wife. So on the husband, here's the guy, 72 years old, 30-year Air Force veteran. I flew airplanes. I was a commander. The Air Force sent me to a lot of schools. They sent me to Squadron Officer School, Air Command and Staff, Air War College. They sent me to Oklahoma for my graduate work. They sent me to leadership schools. But they didn't send me to the school that I needed most. And that was the school on how to take care of your spouse who's transitioning, and you're at home with her for 24/7 by yourself. Somehow I must have been in the bathroom, or I didn't sign up for that Air Force course, but I didn't get it. But I did get it, everything I needed in one day, 47 years ago, when Peggy and I got married. We stood before the pastor, we stood before the Lord, and we said, I take you, Peggy, to be my wife, in good times and bad, in sickness and in health, till death do us part. It's a three-part promise. Good times and bad, well, this was a bad time. Sickness and health, well, this was sickness. Until death do us part, that was coming up. So I got everything I needed from that one-hour course in front of the church. And then with that, people say, well, how did you do it by yourself? I said, there's no secret. I just assess the situation, be calm, be compassionate, and do what's needed to do, and be creative. So that's the thing I had. Again, 47 years of marriage, no children. My sister and I haven't seen her in a couple of years, so it was basically just me. And Peggy, when she got so sick, she would always say, it wasn't supposed to be this way. I was supposed to be taking care of you. I said, Peg, sometimes we make plans, but sometimes God doesn't like our plans and rearranges them a little. I said, that's all. That's all he did, was rearrange our plans. So the difference in my story is that Mary was a nurse. She knew when to give aspirin and not to give aspirin, what to do, and she may have help from her children, whatever. All I knew was how to break things and drop bombs. I didn't know how to separate whites from darks. I didn't know what an IR or an ER pill was. I didn't know anything, but I'm a guy. And guys are pretty stupid. Just send me in, I'll do it. And that's what I did. You know, she was an RN. She passed away at 68. She battled 7 primary cancers, all primary, all non-related. She had breast, lung, throat, uterine, duodenal, liver. The duodenal cancer alone, she had the Whipple procedure done. It was a 14-hour operation because her hysterectomy got infected and all the intestines were stuck together. It took 4 hours before they could even start the Whipple. And she made it through that. And we would look and she said, well, the chances of surviving lung cancer for 5 years is like 10%. She says, I'm dead. And I would always say, Peggy, you're not dead until you're dead. And right now, you're in my arms, and I'll take every minute I can get. So that's the background. And now I want to get to where Edwin and I had some good times when Peggy, she was doing really well for almost 8 months. And Edwin would come, once or twice a week, and the hospice nurse would come maybe twice a week, and the hospice people would help me take care of Peggy in the bed. Well, not in the bed, but they would come maybe once or twice a week. Well, then one day she was using her walker, and I was trailing behind her. I was never that far behind her. And she went to sit on the bed and turned, and it was right on the corner of the bed, and you sort of roll when you sit on them. And she rolled and fell on the floor. And I jumped. I have a hip replacement, a knee replacement. I jumped over the stroller on top, trying to catch her before she hit the floor. I couldn't get her, and she broke her hip. So we had to and she didn't know it. And that little sucker, it was like 2:30 in the morning. We called the EMS people. They came out. And it was so funny because she used to give pizzas to this Section 42, Fire Department 42. And when they saw it was Peggy, they all came out. At 2 o'clock in the morning, I had 7 EMS people in the house to lift one little old lady. So I lifted her up, and she said, and we said, well, we have to call the doctor. And she says, wait a minute. If I can walk, you don't have to call the doctor, right? And they said, well, yeah. So she got on her walker with a broken hip and walked to the front door from her bedroom. You know where that is, Edwin. And she turned around, and she was in such pain, but she wouldn't admit it. And she says, you don't need to call the doctor. And she sat in that little chair on the walker until they left. And they says, you got to help me get back. I can't walk. So that's where I'm going to pick up this story is we're in the hospital bed now. We put the hospital bed in our main bedroom at the foot of the bed. And I slept in the bed, but I slept toe to head. So I slept reverse so that my head would be at the foot of the bed, but it'd be right next to Peggy's. So and every night we would hold hands, and that's how we went to sleep, holding hands. Oh, and I have to add in something else. Remember this, Edwin? She had, what do you call that? We scratch all the time? Shingles. She had shingles. It was a perfect case, right in the right quadrant, forehead. She was scratching constantly. We tried. The docs gave her the most heavy prescription they could give her. Nothing worked. 2 or 3 in the morning, I'd wake up and look, and she's scratching down at the bottom of the bed. But anyway, so here we are. She's at the bottom of the bed. And before I go any further, I want to make 3 assumptions. First of all, the mission of caretaking at home is the same as ABODE. We're providing 24/7 caregiver care in a dignified, letting them pass and transition with dignity. We're providing comfort, we're providing calm, and we're providing love. Same thing that ABODE does, but we're doing it at home. And ABODE is much more trained. And here you got like a pilot with the light bulb doesn't go all the way to the top of the steps, But anyway, we did pretty good. And the first assumption is not many people are trained to do this. I mean, you get the RNs and the nurses and the medical and the caregivers, but 90% of the people are out there, they're engineers or electricians. They don't have a course on, okay, you need to do this. When she does this, give her that. When she does that, do this. I was like, what? So don't be afraid and think that you're not trained to do it, you can't do it, because you can. It's common sense. It's react to the situation and do what you think is right. It may not be right, but nobody's going to know. Second of all, and this is piggybacking on what Mary said, you have no idea of the roller coaster that you're about to get on, the ups and the downs. Edwin saw some pretty big downs. I came home one time I was at HEB and they called me, you got to get home right now, you got to get home right now. All my stuff was on the conveyor to pay. And the hospice nurse, Debbie, said, she wants you right now, you got it. So I turned to the lady and I said, I can't, I got to go, I got to run. That was one of the ones I'll never forget, but there's really good ups and really good downs. And the third one is regardless, remember if you're a 24/7 home caregiver, there's no one better. There's no one better that can do it better than you. You're the one that she or he loved. You're the one that Peggy trusted 47 years with me, and I was going to be with her until the end. Peggy gradually went into different phases, and for a while I said to Edwin, how long does hospice take care of it? And Edwin said, well, your doctor he'll know. And all of a sudden I saw the downhill phase of Peg. And the things you have to be ready for as a spouse or a husband or a wife is don't be upset when they don't recognize you. One night, all of a sudden, Peggy woke up and she says, Mister. And I was in the bed. I said, what's the matter, Peg? She said, bring me that phone. Bring me that phone right now. I said, what do you need? She said, I want to call the police. She said, I want to have you arrested. I said, what for? She said, you're keeping me prisoner. You've captured me. You've kidnapped me, and I want out of here. Bring me that phone. I'm calling the police. I said, Peg, it's me, Harold, your husband. She said, yeah, I know, but mister, bring me that phone. And I said, Peg, I said, you can't walk. You can't get out of here. We're trying to help you. Your hip is a little sore. She says, no, I can walk right now. Well, I said, okay, then if you can walk, just sit up and I'll get you the phone. Well, she tried to sit up and it was just so painful. And she fell back into the thing and she just went, she went back to sleep. The second time was, she woke up and she said, Mister. I said, what's the matter? And she said, can you help me? Can you help me? And I said, help you do what? And I said, Peggy, it's me, Harold. She said, but mister, can you help me get my car back on the Autobahn? I said, where's your car? And she pointed over here, it's right here. I said, how did you get off the Autobahn? She said, well, I think I was running out of gas, but can you help me? I said, sure, I can help you. I said, let's go over. And I said, here, I'll get in the car. And I brought it here. It's all good. It's got gas in it. And she can get back on the Autobahn. And it just passed. And the third one, this is the best one. She says, Mister, we need to figure out what we're going to serve our guests for breakfast. I said, what guests? She says, our B&B. We got to serve the guests breakfast. I said, do we have guests? She says, yeah, we got a real important one. I said, who? She says, we got J-Lo. I said, J-Lo. I said, is she with Mark Anthony? She said, no. She's with and I said, oh, A-Rod's here? I said, I like A-Rod. I said, we can give him Cheerios. We can give A-Rod and J-Rod Cheerios. So, and she kept calling me. She never realized it was me. But the other thing with that is be ready to play along with their game. Don't argue with them. Don't try to bring them back. Just go with the flow, and usually it passed. But be ready for massive feelings of guilt every day. I thought, I'm killing my wife. I'm giving her morphine. Well, just give her a little more. Give her under the tongue. Give her this stuff here. And she would look at me and she'd say, no more. And I said, Peg, aren't you in a lot of pain? She says, yeah. I said, well, this will help you. Doesn't it help? Oh, yeah. And she would take it. But I just felt so guilty. And everybody said, no, if you don't do it, they're going to suffer worse. So, you just have to trust that the people in the know what they're doing. Every time I would give her the medication, that was my time for at least an hour of resting. And I would go into the living room, and I don't know if you ever heard of Enya. And Edwin, you can probably remember the Enya playing in Peggy's, well, we were getting ready. I love Enya CDs. And I would put them on, and I was sitting in this little purple rocker with my dog, and I would just cry. I would just cry. And it was always like, why me? Why me? You know, and Peggy would always ask Edwin, God, why does God take people so young, and why does he do this? And poor Edwin says, we don't have any say, and God has a plan, we're all part of it. And, you know, she would always end, and Ed would always give us our blessing when we'd end. And the other thing is, be ready to blame your spouse. Like I would sit there and I said, Peg, why aren't you here? I got to do the trash, I got to do the shopping, I got to do the dog, I got to do the washing, I got to do the groceries, I got to change all your stuff. I can't take it. You know, and that's when you know that my best help is my neighbor next door. You know, like Mary was saying, I love to start every day with Starbucks. And even now, Edward and I needed Starbucks for coffee. But, and I would say, Bev, can you come over? Peggy just took some medication. She would come over, be like 7:30, and she would sit in the living room. I would get the newspaper, put on Indians, real soft, and I would go to Starbucks, get my coffee, take 10 minutes, read the newspaper, and come back. And most of the time, I made it home before the crap hit the fan, you know. But the other thing is, constantly remember that everything that you're doing, no matter how small and how off target you think it is on target. You know, everything you're doing is perfect, and just keep doing it and being compassionate and all of that. Remember, don't argue. Don't get your spouse upset, and don't you get upset. The worst thing you can do is get upset in front of them, because then they think something's wrong and they're the cause, and it's just not good. All the while, Peg would look at me and I would say, Peg, look at what you've done. You've been an RN, look how many people you've helped survive and take care of. Look how many people in the street, the young kids. Annie, 2 doors up, is now an RN working at Methodist Hospital. I saw her last night, and she said, Peggy would really be proud of me taking care of the COVID patients. She said, I lost 2 the other day. And I thought, Peggy would just get back in the ring, go back in. You know, don't feel sorry for yourself, because other people need you. Signs that the end is near. Her eyes became more sunken in, more glazed. She had prolonged breathing, and she was very distant. And at times, it seems that nothing I did was right. But there are also amazing things, like Mary was saying, that were incredible. She loved iced tea and lemonade, Arnold Palmer drinks, but she loved the Cane's lemonade. So I'd go by the gallon, and I'd mix it with Arizona sweet tea, and she loved real fine crushed ice. Get the bags from H-E-B, and I'd take a mallet and crush them even finer, and you had to mix perfect with a plastic cup at the top and a big straw. And if it was perfect, she would look over at me, and she was in the hospital bed, and I could see her from the kitchen sink. I could see right in at the end of the bed. And she would turn to me, and she would just go like, you know, and she'd smile like, that tea was perfect. And the other one was, one day she just pulled, this is toward the end, she pulled me real close by the chest shirt. And she looked at me and she says, I love you unbelievably. And I said, Peg, I said, that doesn't go together. I said, like, I love you so much. I love you more than anything. And she pulled me tighter. And she said, I love you unbelievably. She knew what she was saying. She wanted something unique that I'll never forget. And it's not what everybody says. And she got it. And she got it across. Finally, after the spouse dies, that is the most difficult day I've ever lived through in my life. You know, at the beginning of the day, Peggy was breathing a little slower and a little harder. And when the hospice clean person came in, we cleaned Peggy up. I said, I want to make her look beautiful. So we shaved the little whiskers, and we did her eyebrows, and we put lipstick on, and we brushed her hair, we shampooed her hair, and you could tell she loved it. I mean, she was like, and we put on a country and western blouse, and she looked really nice. And we put her arms over the, over the sheets and everything. And then I called her two best friends, the two neighbors, and I said, Blanca, you and Ron are welcome to come over. I don't think she's going to last much longer. And you're welcome to spend 15, 20 minutes. And they came over, they prayed with her, and they sat by her, they kneeled down by the bed. And Peg knew what was going on because she squeezed their hands. And then I brought Bev and Terry, the ones that help me almost every day. And they came over, and same thing. Well, that night, I'm in the kitchen and I'm watching, and all of a sudden, I heard like a gurgling. And I looked at it, and she's going, so I went in, and it's like 20 after 12. And I sat by the bed, and she was breathing real heavy, like just total stare. Well, I picked her up, and I just held her in my arms, and she passed. And it's the hardest thing when you look at your spouse and there's no breath. I just can't tell you what it's like. I said, and then when I squeezed her, all the juices from the stomach, I guess, went, because they started to gurgle, and I said, oh, I might break her. I better not do that. But I held her and hugged her, and it was a personal time. And then, I called my next door neighbor, Terry and Bev, and said, she's gone. And they came right over. It's 2:45 in the morning. Called Debbie, the nurse. She was there in 10 minutes. She called Porter Loring. Porter Loring was amazing. They were there within 20 minutes, and they came in suit and everything. And after we were done, they asked if we were finished. I said, yeah. And they asked, it's probably best that you leave. And I left, and they put her because we'll clean up. So they put her in a body bag, and it wasn't just a body bag, it was really nice. It was just very Christian. And it was very, they didn't want an arm falling out as they wheeled her out on the gurney. So she was wrapped in, and Terry, Bev, and I, and Deb, and we sat on the front doorstep. Peggy and I had that house built. And as she left, I watched her being wheeled down the hall, and as she went down the front door and turned, I just gave her a salute, and I said, Peg, mission complete. You can go. Don't worry about us. We're in good hands, And everybody says, well, you can come on over and stay at our house. They have a church. Come over and stay with us. I said, no. Lucy suffered as much as I did. The dog knows what's happening. She protected Peggy to the end. Well, I got 5 feet in the house and went to that little chair again, put on Enya, and I sat there for 10 hours. Just sat there thinking, and if the silence was deafening, I could hear Peggy in the hall, I could hear this, and I looked at the chest. I kept Christmas decorations up year round because Peggy liked Christmas, and she had this one where the little guy would pull this stuff over his head, and I looked at that, and I just remembered the good times we had with that. And that's what I'm saying is, and then everybody will come up and they'll say, we know what we lost a mom and dad. We know what you're going through. It's all really awful. And I just listen and say, thank you very much. But then I think, you have no clue until you've lost a spouse what it's like. I told everybody in the Air Force, I lost my wingman. I lost the person that's always 3 feet away, right next to me. And in my case, she was probably the flight lead, and I was the wingman. But in other words, we were gone. And my best friend, Siobhan, sings a song, and it's called I Won't Untie the Ribbons. And it's about when you go to a remote tour in the military and you don't come home for a year, and the spouse puts up a Christmas tree and leaves it there until you come home, and you open the presents when you come home. Well, I went to Southeast Asia in August and didn't come home till August. Peggy put up the tree in December, and I came home and the ribbons weren't untied. Well, I play Siobhan's song every single night before I go to bed. So that's my story, and I can tell you, like Mary said, it's well worth it. It's hard. I would do it again in a minute. And people say, well, how do you do it? I said, I don't know. You just do it. You react. And you be creative. Lots of pillows, lots of sheets. So that's all I got.
Thank you. That was beautiful.
Yes.
And I have a question. You brought up a lot of course, good things for us to take away, and like the guilt. Have you kind of resolved through that, or working through that feeling of guilt of administering her medication, though she needed for comfort, of course.
I don't feel as guilty, but I will never forget the look on her face when she looks at me and she says, no more. And the eyes looking up, and I said, here, you got to take this morphine, Okay, you don't have to take it, but you're not going to be feeling good. So, you're in a catch-22. But, people like a lot of RNs, a lot of doctors say, no, you have to, these consequences are worse.
I agree. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much, both of you all, for those testimonies.
If I could, I'd just like to say one thing. And as Harold was saying, we don't know how to do this. I mean, we're not trained. None of us are really. And even though we might work professionally in hospice care, there's the other aspect of caring for a family member that's entirely different than working as a professional helping others. But one thing, Harold, that I wanted to say was, as hospice workers, it's an extraordinary thing to have the privilege and to be humbled by being able to witness. And to watch how you loved her and how she loved you, and the laughter in the house was, always right next door to us, right? We would always laugh a lot, and she was also extraordinarily caring of others who came to visit. She was always offering wonderful hospitality as you are and as you have too. So anyway, I have very fond memories of caring for her, and so grateful that you and I can be friends.
It was one that Peggy has introduced me to so many wonderful friends, Edwin and Patsy and Mary and John at ABODE and all those people. They're just wonderful friends. And she introduced me to Ray and Siobhan, and she knew what she was doing. She literally knew. And now they're my best friends for 3 years, and they love ABODE. And Edwin, I can't say enough about ABODE. It's my favorite nonprofit, and whenever I can, I talk to people about it and what your people do. John, I think John might be on the post here, but it's just amazing stuff. And I went over the other night and saw another Air Force person, Tom, and I told Ray, and he says, can I go visit him too? I want to thank him for Ray and I are going tomorrow to ABODE to visit Tom to just say thank you. You can leave the Air Force flight and you're cleared to go. So, and Edwin introduced me to Colonel. They had a fellow there that was a little bit military, but I went in and promoted him to full colonel with a hat with a colonel insignia, and he thought it was shot.
Did he say it's about time?
He says, can you do this? I said, I don't know, but you'll have to find it first, right? And Jack, Ray, and I took for an airplane ride. In our airplane.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and I think I want to just kind of reiterate what Edwin just said. It is such a privilege as a hospice worker to walk the walk with y'all.
Right.
We are humbled by what you do every day.
Well, we are humbled to watch you because I couldn't do it every day.
So I have a little story about Beverly. So when the hospice nurse came and did the intake, he said, your husband's hospice nurse, he whispered it. He said, your husband's hospice nurse is drop dead gorgeous. And I said, wait, gorgeous hospice nurse, you lucky guy. And so anyway, we gave Beverly a nickname, DDG. For drop dead gorgeous. And so I to this day, I always refer to her as DDG. DDG is coming.
One story about Peggy. Debbie, the hospice nurse from Grace, she would come, and Peggy and her would get into nurse conversations, and her daughter was having trouble with AFib. Well, my AFib guy, he's fantastic. Well, he said, Peggy, he gave it to her for a Geritol, iron poor blood to help her iron level. Well, that's like a 1960s drug, you know. You can find it. You can find it in Walmart on the bottom shelf. So she got it. And we were talking to Debbie, and she says, Geritol. She said, next time you come, I'm going to give it to you for your daughter. Well, we painted on there, and they also had a duck. His name was Whacker, and he got eaten by a dog. And so Peg put on there. She drew a duck with painted a duck, and we put on there in stenciled, "Good for dogs too." So we gave the Geritol to Debbie. Said, look, you can give it to your daughter and your duck.
As you can see, you know, that relationship, that bond is real. And, you know, we grieve when you grieve. You know, we have to keep that thick skin though, because we move on to the next. And, but we always take a piece of you with us.
So true.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Mhm.
She's with me today.
So what I want to do now, this was our final class for this session of ABODE Academy. And I just want to thank everybody. If you've been through the 6 sessions with us, thank you. And we'll have more for you in the new year, hopefully January, February, we'll get the new one started. There's a couple things coming up. We're going to do Life After Loss again. And that'll be from 1:30 to 3 on Tuesdays, starting September 7th. And Christus Hospice is participating again this time, and it's going to be held at the Covenant Presbyterian Church on Roletto. So, you know, if you know anybody, or if you're struggling with grief, that'd be a great place to start. And just email us or call ABODE, and we'll get you that information, or just look on our website. We'll have it there. We're going to have another book club. We finished our book club in the spring, and we're going to start another one on September 14th. It'll be on Zoom from 6:30 to 7:30. And the book we're reading is called Sacred Dying, Creating Rituals for Embracing the End of Life by Megary Anderson. And so if you can join us, you know, the last one was pretty long. So some people, you know, they would do 2 or 3 and take off a week and come back. So, but this book is pretty short. We'll be done with it in just a few weeks. So I'd love for you to join us. And then lastly, we're going to do staff and volunteer training. That was going to happen this coming weekend, but due to the COVID surge, we're going to reschedule for everyone's safety. And that will be on Friday, November 12th. Will be our evening session, kind of our welcome. And then on Saturday, the 13th of November from 9 to 2, we'll do our hands-on training. And if you have a desire to be part of our ABODE team, we'd love to have you. And we need you. We need you. The house is going to be filling up again. I've got 2 guests there, and I think a third will be coming soon. So any parting words, Mary?
The only other program that we have planned for October is called Powerful Tools for the Caregiver. So what this ABODE Academy did was give us all a nice overview and a nice taste for the importance of taking care of ourselves so that we can take care of our loved ones. The Powerful Tools for the Caregiver program is for folks who need more. So if you yourself are a caregiver, or you know someone in your circle of friends, in your network, folks who are caring for their loved one and they just need some more support, this program will be very helpful to them. So as Beverly said, reach out, you know my email, because you hear from me all the time, and let me know if a program like that would be helpful to you or to someone you know. And we'll get you signed up. I think that starts October 28th. Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank everybody. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Mel.
Thanks very much. See you all soon.
See you all
Excellent
soon.
program.
Greta.
Very much.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
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 Thank you, Greta. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Ed.
You're welcome. Thank you.